Welcome back to Mini Scandals, the series where we return to dive into the scandals, drama, and interesting stories that make up the world's hobbies, niches, and interests. I loved making the first Magic video, you guys seem to like watching it, and with so many stories left to cover, I thought it only right to give you all another video covering this fantastic game. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, don't sweat. You can always go back and watch that one after this one, as they both cover individual stories. With that being said, you probably already know what Magic is by now. So let's roll out our playmats and spill Red Bull on our commanders, as we planeswalk into the realm of Magic the Gathering. Alright, next I'm going to tap 2 mountains and play Greasy Goblin YouTube fan, who's a 1/1 goblin with poor hygiene. A 1/1? Is that all? Oh, but just wait, my friend. I'm about to enact the Manscaped 5 steps in 5 minutes combo. Alright, first I'm going to tap 2 mountains and play the Manscaped 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner card, which cleanses and nourishes my stupid goblin's disgusting hair. Okay, yep, everyone knows what that card does. But wait, I tap another mountain and buff the goblin further with the Manscaped body wash with refined cologne scent card to hydrate and invigorate my goblin's putrid body. Look mate, I've been playing for 13 years, you don't need to explain the... Next, I play the hydrating body spray card, which lovingly moisturizes my goblin's poor cracked skin. Dude, you didn't even tap any lands for that. And the Manscaped stick deodorant card that smells like the powerful musk of your dad chopping wood shirtless, using nothing but his cock and balls. Judge. Finally, the moisturizing lip balm card to enrich my goblin's cracked lips with vitamin E, peppermint, and eucalyptus oil. Voila! My new and improved super goblin. All of that just to buff your 1/1 to a 2/2 with trample? But how good does he look? Hey guys, we like to have fun on this channel, but due to a crippling and expensive addiction to online pornography, I'm currently forced to advertise Manscaped's line of fantastic products. Get 20% off your next order and free international shipping by going to manscaped.com and using code KUDOS, or clicking the link in the description below. Crackstyle is easily one of the most famous Magic scandals, and one of the few to escape the cozy, rug-laden man cave of the Magic community out into the mainstream. Meaning, even the people who only know of Magic as that cardboard square game for the kids who didn't try in PE class may have heard of this one. Of course, as one of the most divisive events in the history of the community, and a cautionary tale about losing control of your narrative in the face of unexpected, explosive fame, how could I not cover it? Take your mind back to the year 2014. The pandemic had just begun, President Bush was sworn in, and Oxford began printing their controversial line of "We think this sounds about right" history books. In Richmond, Virginia, Wizards of the Coast was hosting one of the largest Magic the Gathering tournaments to date, with over 4,300 players attending to sling spells and hang dong, and countless more to spectate. It is here that we find our soon-to-be hero, a 23-year-old king from Ohio by the name of Sid Blair. Sid was one of the aforementioned players with his eyes on the prize, who was unfortunately new to the modern format being played at the tournament, and as a result, found himself knocked out on his first day of competing. Unable to continue playing, and needing to kill time until his friends finished their own matches, Sid started to entertain himself. Realising that GP Richmond was currently in the middle of a crack epidemic, Sid went about covertly setting up his phone's camera on timer mode before posing next to the protruding posteriors of his card collecting comrades. According to Sid, he was both looking to memorialise his Grand Prix experience as well as get a laugh out of the mates he'd gone with, and achieved this by emulating the sort of tough posturing present in old school hip hop album covers. These photos made their way onto his Instagram, and after the overwhelmingly positive response from his friends, decided that they deserved to be shared for all on the front page of the internet, reddit.com. Sid posted these images to the rfunny subreddit with the caption, "I participated in one of the biggest Magic the Gathering tournaments of all time this weekend. In an effort to document it, I posed for pictures near people with exposed ass cracks. I present to you, Grand Prix Richmond Crackstyle." The initial feedback was positive, so Sid closed Reddit and left his computer, unaware of the beast he had just unleashed on the internet. Waking up the next day, he was shocked to discover that his post had done great. Not just great, it was, at the time, the highest upvoted post ever submitted to Reddit, and to this day is still the only funny thing to ever be uploaded to RFunny. Apparently I even upvoted it back in the day, meaning I can take some small blame for the ensuing shitstorm. Anyone who has participated in online discussion, first of all, I'm so sorry. And secondly, you'll be well versed in the strange phenomenon that occurs as soon as any post or tweet or video goes viral. Usually the reception will start out positive, with the intended audience gravitating towards it, leaving a nice comment and upvoting or liking it. At a certain point, however, it begins to leave the stratosphere and be placed in front of people oblivious to the backstory. A tweet from a comedian known for their heavy use of irony is interpreted as a sincere statement, or a viewer unfamiliar with your sense of humour becomes enraged when you don't just read the Wikipedia page in a monotone voice. With this newfound fame, Sid's post made its way onto sites such as Time Magazine and BuzzFeed, where it was given the prestigious rating of LOL and Badass. What was originally a goofy series of photos with no greater meaning was now being dissected and interpreted as a man drawing attention to a long-running hygiene and presentation issue amongst Magic players, or someone trying to reinforce negative stereotypes around TCG players, or a bully going out of his way to fat shame people, even though Sid was, well, you know. Others complained that he took these images without consent, which, while you can't recognise anyone in the images unless you're overly familiar with a certain someone's anal crevasse, it could still be a source of embarrassment for the men in the pictures. According to Sid, a few of them actually did reach out to him, and all of them found it funny, but of course, that doesn't account for everyone. After the images had made the rounds, Sid said he received an email from the DCI, the organisation that used to run officially sanctioned Magic tournaments, asking for his side of the story. He responded by saying that his aim was never to bully anyone, but unfortunately for Sid, this wasn't good enough. The DCI cracked down on him, and Sid received an 18-month ban from competitive Magic, which, for comparison, is the same length as the original ban for notorious cheater Alex Bertoncini, who we covered in the previous video. Like the engorged glutes of Sid's photobombings, the Magic community was cracked down the middle. Some players found the images hilarious and felt the length of the ban was excessive, especially when compared to people actively ruining the game, such as Alex. While other players felt that he not only deserved the ban, but that it should be extended to a lifetime one. Some believe that this excessive length for a first-time offender may have been done to make an example out of him, but Sid felt that the lack of any major official announcement rebukes this theory. Regardless of the community's complaints, what's done was done, and Sid took the ban on the crack. The ban only stopped him from competing in Magic events, not attending, which ironically did nothing to stop him from pulling the same stunt again, but his future tournament attendances were notably lacking in any posterior pictograms. In a reply to a Hobby Drama post about the event from 2022, he notes that he probably wouldn't have done it again due to the damage it did to the already fragile image us nerds have. Still, despite the mixed reception, the ban, and even the death threats he received, it sounds like it was overall a positive experience for him. I bet I'll eventually want to write a book about the unique life that post has given me. I met countless individuals from coast to coast and taken selfies, had conversations, shared meals, shared celebrations, shared beds, overall put me in a ton of unreal positions that I've been truly gifted to have experienced. As someone with an arts degree, I can safely say there are better ways to spend your money. Also, that artists are about as fucked up as anyone else, just with a more forward-facing outlet to project their shortcomings directly into your eyeballs and ear tubes. Still, artists are an integral part of the MTG experience, transforming maths into magic with nothing but pretty pictures and italicized words. With so many artists, writers, and other creative folk on your payroll, it's only so long before one of them slips up and draws clan members on a card and... Oh, that only took a year to happen. Here's a few short stories of some of the silly things that artists employed by wizards have done over the years. As mentioned, back in 1994, 1 year into Magic's life, a card was illustrated with characters wearing outfits resembling those worn by the Ku Klux Klan. Given the simplistic art style used, this could perhaps be excused as a weird helmet if it wasn't also on a card named Invoke Prejudice. To make matters worse, the card has the effect that if your opponent tries to play a creature whose mana color is different than that of the creatures you have in play, they cost double. To make matters even worse, the card's official internal database ID was accidentally assigned the number 1488, a code word of sorts used by white supremacists that's just complex enough that it manages to fire up all 2 of their neurons at once. The card's artist, Harold McNeil, has also been accused of playing Invoke Prejudice in real life, if you get my drift. But browsing his public Facebook page made me realise he's guilty of an arguably worse crime: self-quoting. Amidst the Black Lives Matter protests in 2020, Wizards put out a statement that they would be removing a series of cards from their database that were racially or culturally offensive, including Invoke Prejudice, and that these cards were also banned from all sanctioned tournament play. The only thing that could have made Invoke Prejudice worse would be if it was a white card. Although, if any player was going to be racist, it would be mono blue. Alright, let's move from 1994 to something a bit more recent. The art on Magic cards is of a very high caliber, with many artists busting ass on their portfolio to even be considered by the wizards who live on the coast. So when artist Kit LaPena finally saw her work on a card in the Mystical Archive series from Strixhaven, she would have been elated if it was her that submitted the work. Alerted by a comment on her DeviantArt page, Kit was surprised to see that fellow artist and longtime Wizards collaborator Jason Felix had copied her 2016 Nicol Bolas fan art almost wholesale, only rotating the arm and partially altering the torso. He even retained her error of giving Bolas 5 fingers instead of 3. Furthermore, the artwork of Ugin is just a flipped version of the iconic Ugin the Spirit Dragon card, illustrated by Raymond Swanland. In isolation, this might have been considered a homage, but when placed next to the other stolen dragon, it seems that Jason was quite keen to nip off for lunch early that day. This was confirmed in a statement he put out on Twitter, where he says that he was overworked, but notes that isn't an excuse, as well as saying he will be sending compensation to Kit and Raymond. Wizards played their own short statement at instant speed, saying they will be suspending work with Jason until they have been able to bring this matter to successful conclusion, whatever that means. It appears that they were able to successfully conclude this issue, as Jason's art has since appeared in multiple sets, most recently in the Innistrad Midnight Hunt set from September, 6 months after Wizards' statement. Writing is one of the many forms of art, or at least I tell myself that while I'm trying to come up with a new way to write penis. Today I'm feeling the chokeable chipolata. Magic's writing staff aren't immune to scandals either, as we found out in 2019's War of the Spark Forsaken novel, when Wizards of the Coast and author Greg Weisman took 2 of their female characters that were all but confirmed queer and retconned them so hard that some of the people reading the books probably had their own orientation changed. For years, the Red Planeswalker Chandra Nillar and Green Planeswalker Nissa Ravine were heavily implied to be interested in shuffling each other's decks through the various short stories and novelization put out by Wizards of the Coast. The fiery passion of the Red Planeswalker, contrasted by the reserved calm of the Green Planeswalker, was an interesting concept, romantically and lore-wise, and fans of the couple started to get some proper payoff during the War of the Spark series of novels. The pair confessed their love for one another in War of the Spark Ravnica, and fans were assured that they would find out if the couple were in a relationship if they read the next book. Fans who read the next book were instead treated to the line, Chandra had never been into girls. Her crushes, and she'd had her fair share, were mostly the brawny and decidedly male types like Gids, hitting the portion of the audience that was excited for their romance with the revelation that not only was Chandra never into girls, she was into the manliest of men. It seems like it was going out of its way to piss off the community that was rooting for the couple. They even went so far as to retcon the admission of love from the previous book, stating that both of them knew deep down they were only speaking platonically, even though that book was also written by Weisman. Many fans in the Magic community were upset at the erasure of the only queer female representation in the series, with some suspicious that the sudden, violent U-turn in their relationship was due to malicious meddling from on high, possibly due to the announcement of a Magic the Gathering Netflix series that stars Chandra in a leading role. Both Wizards of the Coast and the book's author Greg Weisman put out statements apologizing for the way they handled the couple in the book, which interestingly lends credence to the theory that corporate meddling may have shifted the direction of the characters' relationships. In his statement, Greg writes, "I believe that if readers had seen my original ideas for the chapter in question, they might have gotten a better sense of what I was trying to accomplish. They might have liked it better, or maybe they wouldn't have. In any case, through the mutual creative/editorial process with Wizards of the Coast and Del Rey, we ended up with the final product that was published in Forsaken, which clearly didn't meet anyone's expectations or delivers on my intentions, and for that, I am truly sorry." Outside of the sloppy handling of the Gruul friends, the book, which was the finale in the Gatewatch storyline that had spanned several years and multiple sets, was poorly written and badly reviewed across the board. Despite calls to render the book non-canon, this would unfortunately require work, and so War of the Spark Forsaken now forever sits as the stale full stop to one of Magic's most iconic story arcs. As we saw in my Yu-Gi-Oh video, it doesn't take much to set off cardboard collecting cretins, and it only makes sense that Magic the Gathering would have a Player Riot of its very own, predating Yu-Gi-Oh's by a whole 2 years. Triggered by the only tournament final to be decided by disqualification. The year is 1997, and Magic the Slathering is in its 5th year of existence. At the end of February, 236 players were summoned to the battlefield of Los Angeles to compete in a draft of the Visions expansion for a whopping $150,000 prize pool. Our protagonist is American David Mills, a talented player who managed to climb the ladder all the way to the finals. Him and his opponent, Finnish player Tommy Hovey, would be playing for the first place prize of $26,000, and Mills would have had a solid chance at it if he didn't have a little quirk. You see, everyone learns to play the game differently, and if the majority of your games are casual ones that skew the uptight tournament rules in favour of streamlining things, you might pick up a few bad habits that can become difficult to shake when you've got an official judge breathing down your neck and licking your ears for sustenance. Mills had a bad habit of playing his cards before tapping his lands to pay for them, which was a relatively minor issue, but still one that violated the game's rules at the time. Since it appeared that he wasn't doing this for any malicious reason and more out of habit, the judge that noticed this was initially lenient on him, but still told him to cut it out. Unfortunately for Mills, his thought sponge just wasn't wired that way, and altering a playstyle you'd built up over countless games would be like being told at age 28 that you're not meant to piss with both hands gripping your cock. Time and time again, he repeated his fiendish faux pas, with the judge's sympathy turning to annoyance and eventually to a threat. If you make that mistake one more time, you'll be disqualified from the tournament. Mills initially bagged 2 games in the best of 5 final against Tommy Hovey, and with only 1 game left to seal the deal, Pro Tour stardom and enough money to buy a quarter of a Beta Black Lotus was almost in his reach, possibly viewing the judge's threat as an empty one, or perhaps proof that even first place isn't enough motivation to shake old habits. Mills, unfortunately, let his quirk slip one last time, dropping the card he'd hoped to play before tapping his lands. The judge, not one to make hollow threats, informed Mills that he was disqualified without payment, meaning he wouldn't even be eligible for the $16,000 second place payout, and making Tommy Hovey the winner of Pro Tour LA 1997. When it came time for the award ceremony, all hell broke loose. Well, okay, more like a small quiet portion of hell broke loose, where they send people who don't subscribe to YouTube channels that they like. A group of the pros who were in attendance stormed the stage and refused to leave until Mills was allowed to finish his match, noting that the rule he was disqualified for was a trivial one and hardly worth stripping his prize money and potential victory over. Funnily enough, one of the men rallying for justice was none other than Mark Justice, the now infamous player whose own disqualification was covered in the previous video. According to Mark Rosewater, it took a very eloquent speech by tournament manager Andrew Finch which calmed everyone down. While the Riot wasn't successful in altering the outcome of the tournament or the disqualification, they were successful in reinstating David's prize money, allowing him to walk away with $16,000 for his troubles. Some fans felt that Tommy Hovey only managed to win the tournament due to David's disqualification, but he proved them wrong the following year by coming first place in Pro Tour Rome, becoming the first player to ever win 2 Pro Tours. Contemporary Magic players might have found the rule regarding tapping lands before playing cards to be a weird one, and that's because this rule no longer exists today, and you most likely have David Mills to thank for that.
Alright, I'm going to tap 1 mountain to cast Lightning Bolt on your mini kudos.
After more mini scandals, why not choose between the original Magic the Gathering video or see how the other half lives in my Yu-Gi-Oh video?